In the 1920s, wedding guests would bring a layer of cake as a gift. A 12-story cake was proof of how much the community loved the bride. Each layer was a blessing, and each bit of stewed apple was the careful preparation of a woman for a long winter. Today, even with all the fancy cream cakes, the simple and sturdy taste of the stack cake still holds a special place for those who love traditional culture. Stuffed peppers, bell peppers, leftover rice, and a little ground meat. That's how Grandma stretched a pound of meat for a whole week to feed a big family. She would stuff a mix of rice, meat, and breadcrumbs into the peppers and bake them in a rich tomato sauce. Each pepper became a complete meal, with greens, grains, and protein all in one serving. Growing peppers in the backyard garden helped families save a lot of money on vegetables. The smell of roasted peppers mixed with the sweet and sour tomato sauce was usually a sign that a feast was waiting. Compared to today, this dish still shows how clever it is to turn cheap ingredients into something colorful and inviting. It teaches us the lesson of using what's left from the previous meal to make a wonderful new start. Potato pancakes / latkes. Just potatoes, flour, and salt. This was the immigrant kitchen's answer to waste, using up old mashed potatoes or even spuds that had started to sprout. Grandma would grate raw potatoes into small shreds, squeeze out the starch water, and mix them with a handful of flour to fry flat in a pan of hot grease. The result was a pancake with crispy edges and a soft, savory center. Polish, German, and Jewish housewives called them latkes and made them for holidays to bring joy to the children. On warm Saturday afternoons, the smell of frying potatoes throughout the house became a staple of childhood for many generations. Even though they were made from the cheapest ingredients, these pancakes always felt like a treat. Today, they are often eaten with applesauce, but the original simple taste with a bit of salt is what people miss most. Hoover stew. Named after one of America's hardest times, this was made from macaroni, canned tomatoes, and sliced hot dogs. In the worst years of the 1930s, this stew was served at relief kitchens to thousands of families every day. The cooking was so simple: boil the macaroni, then add the canned tomatoes and hot dogs, and simmer them together until the flavors blended. It was a meal that filled the belly immediately and warmed bodies tired from poverty. Even though it came from hard times, many children back then remembered it fondly because their mothers were clever enough to make it feel like a choice rather than a struggle. A simple recipe that even a child could make became a lifesaver for so many. Hoover stew is proof of the spirit of getting through, where people found joy in a hot bowl of noodles even when the world around them seemed to be falling apart. Bean soup with ham hock. Just navy beans, a smoked ham hock, and water. The smoky flavor from a cheap ham hock could feed up to 12 people. Back then, a ham hock cost only $1 and dried beans were about 40 cents. A tiny investment for the health and fullness of the whole family. Grandma would slow simmer the pot all day so the beans got soft and soaked up all the salty, smoky taste of the meat. The rich scent in the kitchen made anyone coming home from the fields feel their tiredness melt away. It's interesting that this poor man's soup is a direct relative of the soup still served in the U.S. Senate dining room today. Bean soup with ham hock didn't just give plenty of protein, it gave a sense of warmth and stability. In those steaming bowls, people found a connection between generations and gratitude for what nature provided. Every spoonful was a reminder of Grandma's wisdom in using the cheapest cuts of meat to make a high-class meal. Egg drop soup. Eggs, broth, salt. Before Chinese restaurants were everywhere, this kind of soup was quietly present in American farmhouse kitchens. When the pot of chicken bone broth was there, but other ingredients were gone, Grandma just had to boil it again, pour in beaten eggs, and watch them form silky ribbons in the clear liquid. A pinch of salt, and it was done. A hot bowl of soup to nourish the body from almost nothing. In every culture, this dish has a different name. European immigrants called it stracciatella and added parmesan. Jewish families served it on Shabbat. And Southern housewives didn't even need a name for it. As long as it was good and filling, it's the perfect meal for when you're getting over a cold or when your body needs a gentle, nutritious pat on the back. No matter how many fancy soups we have today, the simple taste of Grandma's egg drop soup will always be a peaceful memory for us all. Salt pork, flour, and lard. This was a staple for tenant farmers and railroad workers because it was much cheaper than bacon or ham. Grandma would slice the meat very thin, roll it in flour, and fry it crispy in a cast iron skillet. Anyone who needed protein and couldn't be picky loved this dish. Fried salt pork with white gravy raised generations of workers, giving them the energy for the hardest jobs. The pan drippings were thick, salty, and rich, poured over biscuits, cornmeal mush, or anything that stayed still long enough. The term white gravy came from these poor kitchens and became a core part of Southern cooking. Though salt pork isn't a main dish today, its flavor reminds us of a time when people cherished every drop of fat and every scrap of meat to stay alive. Did you know that modern nutrition studies have found a surprising truth? Grandma's diet of pinto beans and cornbread was actually much better for us than the chemical-filled packaged foods we see today. She didn't raise us in poverty of quality. She raised us with wise survival knowledge. Do you still have any old kitchen tools from Grandma's time, like a cast iron skillet or a wooden spoon? Please share your stories in the comments below. It's how we honor values that never go out of style. Syrup sandwich. This sweet taste of a mother's love during hard times was just white bread, butter, and cane syrup. When refined sugar was expensive, cheap local cane syrup was a lifesaver for children's sweet tooths. Grandma would spread a thin layer of butter on the bread and drizzle some thick amber syrup on top. For many who grew up then, the syrup sandwich is the image of a simple lunchbox when the pantry was empty. Women gave this meal with all their love, turning a shortage into a sweet and warm memory for their children. Even though it was a temporary fix, the rich sweetness of cane syrup mixed with creamy butter became the taste of comfort. Each bite is a memory of quiet care, reminding us of the value of simple things filled with human kindness. Today, with sweets everywhere, the simple taste of cane syrup on bread remains a symbol of a mother's selflessness and creativity. Pot liquor and cornbread. Never throw away this magic liquid. That's the lesson from this dish of collard greens, salt pork, and cornbread. The water left after boiling the greens holds every precious vitamin and mineral that leaked out of the leaves. Instead of pouring it out, Grandma would drizzle this rich broth over crumbled pieces of cornbread so not a single bit of nutrition was wasted. Once thought of as the meal of the poorest in the South, it's actually one of the most mineral-rich meals ever made. Men coming home from the fields would drink it straight from a bowl to get their strength back, while children eagerly slurped every spoonful with soft cornbread. Each bowl of pot liquor wasn't just food, it was a natural dose of medicine to boost health. Today, nutrition experts call it the peak of natural health food, once again proving the grandmothers of decades ago were right. Bread pudding. Old bread, milk, and eggs. Turn yesterday's mistake into today's gift. To make sure not a single scrap of bread was wasted, Grandma created this sweet and warm dessert. Dry bread was torn up, soaked in a mix of warm milk and beaten eggs, and then baked until golden. The result was pieces with crispy edges, but a soft, custard-like center that filled the house with a wonderful smell. For Grandma, bread pudding wasn't just a dish. It was how she taught us to be grateful for food and how to bring back to life things that seemed useless. The smell of cinnamon and baking whenever she took the tray out of the oven was always a sign of happiness and plenty. Now, it's a staple in high-end Southern restaurants for $12 a serving. I bet Grandma would have a few things to say about that. Crackers and milk. The salvation at the end of the day when the stove had been cold for hours was this simple meal of saltine crackers, milk, and a little salt. This was Grandma's way of getting by at 9 p.m. when the money was gone and the main food was all out. Just crumble a handful of crackers into a bowl of cold milk, add a little salt, and you had a snack that satisfied hunger immediately and made it easy to drift off to sleep.